United States labor market, closing stores and layoffs thousands of its personnel. The Starbucks company will close some 400 coffee shops. It will be for the next 18 months. By FA. Published on June 12, 2020. Updated at 2:50 a.m. on June 13, 2020. Starbucks announced Wednesday that it is closing about 400 stores in the United States and Canada and that it expects to post a loss in the current quarter, with sales falling by more than $3 billion. The American company also expects that the income of its cafeterias will remain low for the rest of the year, despite the fact that a large majority have already reopened, as reported in a letter to the stock market regulator. Starbucks indicated that 95% of the around 8,000 establishments that it directly manages, not franchises, in the United States are currently operating, with different types of service, in some cases only with takeout products. For the year as a whole, the company expects sales in its two main markets, the United States and China, to fall between 10% and 20%. In addition to closing about 400 coffee shops over the next 18 months, the Seattle, Washington-based company is opening only about 300 new ones in the current fiscal year, about half of what it originally planned. Bed Bath & Beyond to close more stores in 2022. They already offer clearance prices. The Bed Bath & Beyond chain of stores announced the closure of more locations across the country for this 2022. This is a total of 37 stores in 19 states that would close their doors by the end of February, according to CNBC. In a Bed Bath & Beyond post, the company disclosed that stores are offering clearance prices because all inventory must be sold. By Telemundo 62. Posted on November 18, 2021. Updated at 6:19 p.m. on November 18, 2021. CVS Health will close hundreds of pharmacies over the next 3 years as the retail giant adapts to changing customer needs and adapts its format to digital. The company said Thursday that it will close about 300 stores a year for the next 3 years as it seeks to reduce the number of stores in some locations. The total of about 900 is equivalent to nearly 1/10 of the approximately 10,000 retail stores that CVS Health operates. The company also sells insurance and manages prescription drug plans for large clients such as insurers and employers. CVS expects to take an impairment charge of between $1.2 billion and $1.2 billion in the fourth quarter for the closures. That charge will not affect the company's earnings forecast. Pharmacy chains like CVS and Walgreens built thousands of locations across the country to get closer to consumers' homes. But in recent years, the explosive growth of online shopping has dampened demand for that convenience. Shares of Woonsocket, Rhode Island-based CVS Health Corp. rose slightly Thursday morning, while broader trade indices fell. Lord & Taylor, the oldest department store in the U.S., and the men's warehouse chain go bankrupt. The coronavirus crisis has hit the retail sector in the United States hard, and department stores and clothing stores particularly hard. By FA, published on August 3, 2020. Shutterstock, the historic Lord & Taylor department store and tailored brands, owner of men's warehouse clothing stores, have filed for bankruptcy. New York, the historic Lord & Taylor department store and the tailored brands firm, owner of the men's warehouse clothing stores, have filed for bankruptcy, adding to the long list of American companies in the fashion sector that are not being able to overcome the pandemic. Although several of these companies were already experiencing great difficulties, the crisis is being the final straw for many of them, after being forced to temporarily close many of their establishments to contain COVID-19. This is the case of Lord & Taylor, one of the oldest department stores in the United States, which currently has about 40 stores in the country and which has been experiencing problems for years due to the growth of purchases through from internet. Apple announces temporary store closures in Texas. Here we tell you the locations of the branches that will temporarily close as of this Thursday. By Telemundo San Antonio. Posted on July 1, 2020. Updated at 8:41 p.m. on July 3, 2020. Telemundo. The company announced that the decision was made due to the growing increase in COVID-19 cases in the state. San Antonio. Tech giant Apple announced the temporary closure of a large number of its stores nationwide, some of which are located in Texas. Due to the current conditions regarding COVID-19 in some of the communities we serve, we are temporarily closing these stores in these areas, the company said in a press release. We take this step with an abundance of caution as we monitor the situation and hope to have our teams and consumers back as soon as possible, the statement added. Nick Leahy, a spokesman for the company, said that with stores temporarily closing again as of Thursday, there will be a total of 77 closures in the United States. In Texas, the locations that will temporarily close will be The Quarry, San Antonio; North Star, San Antonio; Knox Street, Dallas; North Park Center, Dallas; Galleria, Dallas; University Park Village, Fort Worth; Cielo Vista Mall, El Paso; Barton Creek, Austin; Domain Northside, Austin; South Lake Town Square, South Lake. Closure of stores. Microsoft permanently closes all its physical stores and avoids talking about layoffs. The firm currently has 83 physical stores around the world, most of them in the U.S. By FA. Published on June 26, 2020. Updated at 3:46 p.m. on June 26, 2020. Telemundo. The company apart avoided talking about layoffs. San Francisco. The American multinational Microsoft announced this Friday the decision to permanently close all its physical stores in the world, which it estimates will cost approximately $450 million in the coming days. In an entry on the company's website, the Redmond, Washington State, firm avoided talking about layoffs and indicated that retail workers will continue to serve customers from Microsoft offices and carry out sales, technical support and training remotely. Our sales have grown through the internet and our product portfolio has evolved to mostly digital offerings, said the company's corporate vice president, David Porter. Despite the eminently digital nature of Microsoft products, after all, the company's focus has always been software. The firm led by Satya Nadella has significantly strengthened its physical presence in recent years, something that analyst sector interpreted as an attempt to emulate the strategy of its competitor Apple, whose stores are an icon in many cities around the world. End of the holidays? Chuck E. Cheese. Last bankrupt company due to the pandemic. Irving, Texas. Chuck E. Cheese's parent company, CEC Entertainment, said Thursday that it filed for bankruptcy protection after being hit hard by store closures stemming from the coronavirus pandemic. Despite the gray situation, the company also plans to continue opening additional locations each week. The company, which is owned by private equity firm Apollo Global Management, expects to continue operations through the bankruptcy protection process and will continue to reopen locations that were temporarily closed during the pandemic. It has already reopened nearly half of the company's 6,120 Chuck E. Cheese and Peter Piper Pizza locations as of Wednesday. As of June 24, 266 company-operated Chuck E. Cheese and Peter Piper Pizza restaurants and arcades had safely reopened, in accordance with all CDC, federal, state and local guidelines, he explained. By Telemundo Local and AP. Published on June 25, 2020. Updated at 5:35 p.m. on June 25, 2020. Telemundo. Closure of stores. The Children's Place to close 300 stores as it recovers from pandemic impact. The Children's Place has 920 stores in the United States, Puerto Rico and Canada. By Telemundo Local. Posted on June 16, 2020. Shutterstock. A store in Toronto by Children's Place, Inc. Children's clothing retailer The Children's Place announced plans to close 300 stores starting now and complete the closures by the end of 2021, as the company looks to reduce its physical footprint to focus on e-commerce. The New Jersey-based company said in a news release that it plans to close 200 stores in 2020 and another 100 in 2021 as part of its restructuring plans. The Children's Place has 920 stores in the United States, Puerto Rico and Canada. It was not immediately clear which locations will be closed, but CEO Jane Elfer said most of the closings will be in malls. We believe our strong digital foundation, coupled with our consumers' rapidly changing buying patterns, in part due to the COVID-19 pandemic, our strong value proposition, and our core customer, who is a digitally savvy millennial, will result in a continued acceleration of our digital revenue, said Elfers. Closure of stores. Pier 1 files for bankruptcy protection after years of declining sales. The company has been struggling with increased competition from budget online retailers like Wayfair and Amazon and discount stores like Home Goods. Posted on February 17, 2020. What you should know. Pier 1 was founded in 1962 in California but moved to Texas in 1966 and went public in 1970. In a 2018 presentation to investors, the company acknowledged that buyers thought its merchandise was dated and expensive. Pier 1 said it will pursue a sale, with a March 23 deadline to submit offers. Pier 1 Imports Inc., the purveyor of once cool housewares like Papasan chairs and cushions, filed for bankruptcy Monday after years of declining sales. The Fort Worth, Texas-based company has been struggling with increased competition from budget online retailers like Wayfair and Amazon and discount stores like Home Goods. Meanwhile, Pier 1 said the lenders have committed approximately $256 million in debt-held financing so that it can continue operations during Chapter 11 proceedings. Today's actions are intended to provide Pier 1 with additional time and financial flexibility as we now work to unlock additional value for our shareholders through the sale of the company, said Pier 1 Chief Executive Officer and CFO, Robert Riesbeck, in a statement. Riesbeck, an executive with previous corporate changes, joined Pier 1 last summer. $0.58 per share. Closure of stores. 300 Pizza Hut restaurants to close after large franchise owner bankruptcy. The franchise owner operates more than 1,220 Pizza Hut branches and 380 Wendy's locations in 27 states. By Telemundo 47 and AP. Posted on August 17, 2020. About 300 Pizza Hut restaurants are scheduled to close permanently following the bankruptcy filing of large franchise owner NPC International, which filed for Chapter 11 in July. NPC announced an agreement with Pizza Hut's corporate owner, Yum! Brands, to close a quarter of its pizzerias, while looking for buyers for the others. The company did not disclose the date of the closure or the specific locations. However, in a statement to CNN, it noted that many of the restaurants scheduled to close are significantly underperforming compared to other Pizza Hut locations and that getting rid of they would strengthen the remaining portfolio of NPCs. Companies that announced major layoffs and hiring freezes. December 14, 2022. Layoff, downsizing. Intelligence offers the latest layoffs, downsizing, job cuts, and hiring freeze data for market intelligence, customer intelligence, sales intelligence, and risk intelligence activities. We monitor various public sources like news and WARN filings for the latest layoff and hiring freeze announcements, aggregate, deduplicate, normalize and deliver the curated layoff data through various channels, API and web dashboard. Here is the list of the latest major layoffs announced by leading companies. Pratt & Whitney. Number of employees to be laid off, 900. Industry. Aerospace manufacturing. December 2022. U.S. jet engine maker Pratt & Whitney is set to stop manufacturing compressor blades at Blades Technology Limited. BTL, in Naharia after more than 40 years. This will put 900 jobs at risk. Oil Rooms. Number of employees to be laid off, 600. Industry. Tourism and hospitality. December 2022. SoftBank-backed Indian hotel aggregator Oyo Hotels is cutting 600 jobs of its 3,700 employees, mostly in its corporate and technology teams. Morgan Stanley. Number of employees to be laid off, 1,600. Industry. Financial services and banking. December 2022. Morgan Stanley has cut about 2% of its workforce, affecting about 1,600 positions out of its global workforce of more than 81,000 employees. It follows workforce reductions as banking companies return to the annual selection of underperformers. Vedantu. Number of employees to be laid off, 385. Industry. Edutech. December 2022. EdTech unicorn Vedantu has laid off 385 of its employees, which comprises 11.6% of its workforce. This is Vedantu's fourth round of layoffs this year, with 624 in May 2022, followed by 100 workers in August. Glint's number of employees to be laid off, 18% of employees. Industry. Human resource. December 2022. Glint's, a Singapore-based HR startup focused on career development and talent recruitment, has retrenched 18% of its 1,000 employees. Airtable. Number of employees to be laid off, 254. Industry. Human resource. December 2022. San Francisco's Airtable will lay off 254 employees, about 20% of the company, as tech job cuts continue across the Bay Area tech industry. The company's software allows businesses to put together databases and spreadsheets on the cloud without using code. In uncertain economic times, the company plans to refocus on large enterprise clients, a business area that is growing strongly. Sensei Biotherapeutics. Number of employees to be laid off, 40% of its workforce. Industry. Biotechnology. December 2022. Sensei Biotherapeutics is streamlining and realignment its resources and plans to reduce its workforce by approximately 40%. Stellantis. Number of employees to be laid off, 1,350. Industry. Automobile, EV. December 2022. Stellantis is shuttering its Illinois plant in February, resulting in indefinite layoffs for 1,350 employees. Stellantis said, "Our industry has been adversely affected by a multitude of factors like the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and the global microchip shortage, but the most impactful challenge is the increasing cost related to the electrification of the automotive market." Scholix Corp. Number of employees to be laid off, 460. Industry. Consulting. December 2022. Consulting firm Scholix Corp. is laying off 460 employees in its Orange County site in Laguna Niguel, California, according to a recent Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, WARN, filing. DoorDash. Number of employees to be laid off, 1,200. Industry. Food delivery. December 2022. U.S. food delivery app DoorDash lets off around 1,200 of its employees, that is 30% of its workforce. The company cited excess hiring when delivery demand surged during the COVID-19 pandemic as the reason for layoffs. Kraken. Number of employees to be laid off, 30%, 1,100 of workforce. Industry. Ciarpto. December 2022. Kraken, one of the world's largest crypto exchanges, is laying off about 30% of its headcount, or 1,100 people, in order to adapt to current market conditions. The company specified slowing macroeconomic and geopolitical factors as driving the weakening in crypto markets. H&M. Number of employees to be laid off, 1,500. Industry. Retail. December 2022. The world's number 2 fashion retailer H&M will cut 1,500 jobs to reduce costs amid softening demand and a surge in the cost of living. This will save the company 2 billion Swedish crowns per year in September. Reverse mortgage funding. Number of employees to be laid off, 80% of workforce. Industry. Financial services. November 2022. Reverse mortgage funding, LLC has laid off 80% of its staff. The company said, like many of its peers, it has been challenged by unprecedented interest rate hikes and overall macroeconomic volatility. As a result, the cost of financing and securitizing reverse mortgages has made it impossible for RMF to continue originations for seniors looking to unlock value in their homes at this time. Spectrum Pharmaceuticals. Number of employees to be laid off, 30% of workforce. Industry. Pharmaceuticals. November 2022. Spectrum Pharmaceuticals is cutting about 30% of its workforce to prioritize work on its 2 late-stage assets. The company has gone through a number of challenges, including a sale of its marketed drugs portfolio in 2019 and an FDA rejection for a key prospect last year. Now, it's laying off staff to save cash and focus on its mid and late-stage cancer meds. MessageBird. Number of employees to be laid off, 31% of workforce. Industry. Communications. November 2022. MessageBird, an Amsterdam-based cloud communications platform, has laid off 31% of its staff. Poor macroeconomic conditions and the looming recession have led the company to make this move. AMC Networks. Number of employees to be laid off, 20% of workforce. Industry. Communications. November 2022. AMC Networks plans to lay off about 20% of its U.S. employees, a sign of further disruption at a company. Earlier, their chief executive had stepped down less than 3 months after taking the position. "We have determined we need to conserve resources at this time," the entertainment company said Tuesday. This will involve cutbacks in operations, which unfortunately includes a large-scale layoff, impacting approximately 20% of our employees in the U.S. United Furniture Industries. Number of employees to be laid off, 2,700. Industry. Manufacturing. November 2022. United Furniture Industries, a Mississippi-based furniture company, abruptly terminated the services of nearly 2,700 workers in the U.S. just days before Thanksgiving. Thousands of workers, many of whom were asleep, received a text message from the company saying that they were laid off effective immediately and were no longer allowed to return to work. Infarm. Number of employees to be laid off, 500. Industry. Agri-technologies. November 2022. Infarm is making a significant strategy shift and accelerating its drive towards profitability. The company is reducing the number of production sites that will impact over half the workforce. Around 500 employees will leave the company. Correct. Number of employees to be laid off, 40% of employees. Industry. Business services. November 2022. Correct. A chat-based direct hiring platform for startups has laid off 40% of its employees, in what the company termed an organizational restructuring and a strategic change in its business model. Alphabet. Number of employees to be laid off, 10,000. Industry. Technology. November 2022. Alphabet, Google's parent company, plans to lay off about 10,000 poor-performing employees, or 6% of its workforce, following the layoffs by Meta, Amazon, Twitter, Salesforce, and more amid the rough global conditions. Neximmune. Number of employees to be laid off, 30% of employees. Industry. Biotechnology. November 2022. Neximmune, an 11-year-old biotech developing immunotherapy treatments for cancer and autoimmune diseases, is cutting clinical programs and laying off 30% of the workers who run them. Hewlett-Packard. Number of employees to be laid off, 6,000. Industry. Technology. November 2022. Hewlett-Packard would lay off as many as 6,000 employees over the next 3 years as the slumping world economy continues to trouble the U.S. tech sector. HP aims to save $1.4 billion in annual savings through 2025 as it followed the cost-cutting path of other tech giants such as Facebook owner Meta, Amazon and Twitter. Cisco. Number of employees to be laid off, 4,000. Industry. Technology. November 2022. Network giant Cisco is reportedly planning to lay off over 4,000 of its employees. This is around 5% of Cisco's total headcount of 83,000. The decision to lay off employees has been taken as a part of the rebalancing process. Carvana. Number of employees to be laid off, 1,500. Industry. E-commerce. November 2022. Carvana plans to lay off about 1,500 employees, or about 8% of the company's workforce. The workforce reductions come as the online used car retailer faces economic slowdown and an uncertain future. The layoff also adds to the 2,500 employees the company planned to lay off earlier this year after it overshot its growth strategy. Foxconn. Number of employees to be laid off, hiring freeze. Industry. Technology. November 2022. Foxconn, the major iPhone supplier, has paused its hiring because of 4-day quarantine space shortage. The company requires 1 million new workers to get back to full capacity, but due to a shortage of quarantine space, it has frozen the hiring. GE Appliances. Number of employees to be laid off, 5% of employees. Industry. Manufacturing. November 2022. GE Appliances is planning to lay off 5% of its salaried workforce, citing the rising cost of keeping the company running. CEO Wood said in an email, GE Appliances has invested in new technology and products to keep the company competitive for the long term. However, with double-digit material inflation and a highly disrupted supply chain, manufacturing and operating costs have reached historic levels. Amazon. Number of employees to be laid off, 10,000. Industry. E-commerce. November 2022. Amazon to cut down around 10,000 employees, around 3% of its 3 lakh plus corporate workforce. The company has offered voluntary buyouts to some human resources staff. Amazon will work closely with the impacted employees and help provide support, including assisting in finding new roles. Twitter. Number of employees to be laid off, 4,400. Industry. Technology. November 2022. A week after firing about 50% of its workforce, i.e. around 3,700 employees, Twitter has laid off at least 4,400 contractual workers. Many people found out about their termination after they abruptly lost access to Twitter's internal systems. GoTo Group. Number of employees to be laid off, 1,000. Industry. Technology. November 2022. GoTo Group, Indonesia's largest internet company, is planning to cut more than 10% of the workforce, which will affect 1,000 jobs as it seeks to cut costs and shore up its finances. The layoffs will affect all divisions. C.H. Robinson. Number of employees to be laid off, 1,000. Industry. Logistics. November 2022. Truck brokerage company C.H. Robinson Worldwide has laid off approximately 650 employees. The move comes a week after the company reported weaker than expected third-quarter results. They strongly hinted at impending labor cost reductions to meet the impact of slowing demand and increased costs. Whisper. Number of employees to be laid off, 1,000. Industry. Technology. November 2022. Whisper, a cloud-based Australian communications tech company that offers a platform for everything from crisis management to marketing, has let go of 30% of its workforce. The move has delivered $14.3 million in savings a year. SEMA 4. Number of employees to be laid off, 500. Industry. Biotechnology. November 2022. SEMA 4, a Stamford-based genomic testing biotech company, has laid off approximately 500 jobs, close its Stamford laboratory and end reproductive health testing.